Generational wealth is not supposed to be this easy. And to be honest, it's been a bit tumultuous recently. So it's not as easy as everyone's made it out to be. But if you look at what I'm going to show you, especially the last 3 graphs in this video, you might be like, okay, maybe it's not easy, but it's simple if you understand and follow the right people. And I'm following Murad, and I think he's brilliant trader with a brilliant thesis, and once again, I'm doubling down and putting my money behind it. I want to show you exactly why, so you can make the decision for yourself. Had a lot of people think, oh, do you think these meme coins are still going to go to a certain amount? This will answer the question for you. Now, short answer is yes, I do personally believe that. Longer answer, let's see what Murad has to say. Once a certain tipping point is reached, the move from $2 to $3 billion market cap to a $50 billion market cap will be swift, will be really quick, guys. Mark my words, which this is one of the big theses of the video, is things move exponentially. And when the mainstream is here and when everyone thinks it's an excellent time to buy, that is when it's going to move swiftly to the top. And obviously it moves swift the other way. Warren Buffett has what I would honestly refer to as a boring quote in isolation. But when we apply this to meme coins, it's when it starts to pique my interest. He says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. Now, how does that apply to tokens and crypto and meme coins specifically? Well, this is the fear and greed index, how excited or not excited, hesitant people are to buy into something like Bitcoin or other tokens. This is plotted since 2023. You can see it basically goes up and down. And this gray line here is the price of Bitcoin, which is the market music that everything dances to. So it's basically like, it's almost like an index fund of all the tokens below it. Have a look here, the yearly high and lows. So when people were fearful, and Warren Buffett says you should be greedy, it was on September 7th, 2024. If we find that low right here, this crazy 26 fear and greed index, this little peak down there, or valley, should we say, down there, if you were greedy then, you would literally have marked the bottom of the cycle. Now let's have a look at the inverse. If you were fearful when others were greedy, which Warren Buffett advises is a good thing, at 92, you can see that peak is up here. When is that? March 12th, 2024. You can see, although Bitcoin held pretty strong, you got to wait a long time. You got to wait 6 months and you're slowly bleeding out and to the right. And I mean, okay, it wasn't a massive dip and a massive pullback there, fortunately. But that's literally the worst time you could have bought. That's when the greed index was the highest in that 6-month period. And so Warren Buffett's quote becomes less boring when it actually applies to making lots of money. Now, why does that apply to right now? Well, obviously, the market sentiment right now is terrible. We're down to 32, almost the low of 26. Ilio says, the timeline sentiment has only been this bad near macro bottoms. Ilio Trades gets it. Do with that what you will. I'm optimistic AF. Murad says, most people in the world are believers and not gamblers. Most people join crypto towards the end of each cycle. That's the thing to really take in. Most people join crypto towards the end of each cycle. When most people are joining crypto, it literally marks the end. That's when the moves are parabolic. That's when the moves are exponential. That's when we get a 10x on top of the 10x that we've already got and lock in that 100x and get the hell out before the thing comes tumbling down. That's why all these insane pumps happen towards the end of each cycle. Coins that have the most believers will go ballistic in capitals when a massive wave of new believers come. Even Miles Doinger says the danger comes when something becomes consensus. You need the market offside. You need them bearish. You need them fearful to fuel the big rallies. And the Ghost of Tens Cho says generational wealth is not for the faint of heart. Even though we've had a strong pullback recently, if you want generational wealth, you can't exit now. Murad says this is a marathon, not a sprint. Persist forever. It's a long time to persist, but if you can do that, obviously you'll see the market go extremely high. Now, CoinMamba says ETH is extremely mispriced right now. This is the new switch, the new meta, the new wave, at least in theory, because the price action hasn't really mirrored this yet, but people are guessing that it will, including like Eric Trump Jr. talking about now's a good time to buy ETH. You will not get an opportunity like this ever again. And you can see he's quoted on top of Darn Crypto Trades saying if ETH were still to trade at the same ratio of ETH to Bitcoin that it did after the FTX collapse in 2022, it would now be valued at $7,000, currently valued at $3,000, which means it's got more than 2x to go if it was to return to that normal ratio. Clouted said Sol and ETH generational top, ETH to Bitcoin generational bottom, meaning ETH is going to eat into the Bitcoin market share. Then Crypto says, I'm long ETH. He's up $21,000 on this 11x long trade. And Alex Becker replies with a handshake. He agrees that it's time for ETH to take off. Murad even says, Ethereum-based meme coins are about to outperform in a major way over the coming weeks. Now, a couple things in here. Coming weeks, it's a fantastic timeline. I'd like to outperform with my ETH meme coins over the next coming weeks. But two, he thinks that ETH meta is also coming around. And what happens when the big dogs, the big blue chips like ETH move? Well, the top meme coins are going to move up with it, but with extra volatility. In fact, Murad says, we are close to the turning point. Coins with true believers will rise above them all. And he differentiates using this nice case-shaped graph here, the difference between cults and the trenches, or the shitcoins. You can see he thinks that the Trump launch marked the peak of, I believe this is sentiment, it could be market cap, and now we're here in the valley, or we're somewhere between these two arrows, because he says we're close to the turning point. And what happens when the turning point comes is people realize that the Argentine coin was an absolute scam, and well, I wouldn't say scam, but like they just kept pulling liquidity as people bought in. I have a nuanced take on what a scam is, because I mean, it was all transparent and everyone could see the wallet distributions, and it's like, I mean, I lost money on it too, but it's just like, I wouldn't call it a scam. They just sold their tokens. They never said they wouldn't sell their tokens. But yeah, this is a different topic we'll go into. We won't ever go into it, but that's just my thought. I don't think it's a scam. I think it's just a terribly designed launch. But the terribly designed launches and the scams, the ones that actually are scams, will fade off to the side. It's separating the wheat from the chaff here, and then the cults will really separate and claim all that market share. This comes from Real Crypto Cow, who says, net positive for cults is legitimacy to the category after the Trump token and, of course, the Argentinian shenanigans that went down, exposes the danger of bidding new launches and non-cult communities, flushes the trenches and weak holders, leaving only the strong. It's also negative what's been going down for the trenches, because there's no bigger catalyst than most influential person in the world launching a token with no plans of sustainability, permanently creating a ceiling, subjecting the masses to extraction, and creating a bottomless hole. An example, if Trump is down 60%, why should your new launch, which people were chasing around, hold up any better than Trump's token? Now, Murad thinks we're at once in a decade opportunity. Now, this tweet from Murad was actually quite fascinating, because he says this is the only chart you need. My rough view on what I believe is going to happen. Break that trend line before we can even think about having bullish discussions. Patience is a virtue. He's got a graph of a token here that he thinks will accumulate down here at about a $2,000 price point and then break out to the upside. What token is this? This is Bitcoin, and this was from Feb 6th, 2019, before Bitcoin basically ran this exact pattern. I actually think I have it here for you. Scrolling in to 2019, somewhere in here. 2019, yep, right here. So it accumulated down here at about the $4,000 mark, and then went absolutely bullish to the upside up to $12,000. And if you continue to listen to Murad's thesis back then, he was preaching Bitcoin in the exact same way that he's preaching SPX 6900 or Giga now. And guys, what's the difference between Bitcoin in 2019 and SPX in 2025? Well, one, we're going to find out, but two, well, Bitcoin was the original crypto cult. And you can see if you were listening to Murad back then, and he's talking about how Bitcoin is the cult, how it's going to absorb all the crazy inflation that the countries are going through. Way down here at the $4,000 level, you would, of course, done extremely well. And I like to think that we are in a similar position after a strong pullback in the meme coins, which is where he's putting all of his attention. In fact, he says SPX 6900, his #1 hold, will have millions of holders soon. This is the future. You are early. If he was telling you this about Bitcoin in 2019, would you have listened? Well, I didn't see it. I probably wouldn't have listened. So I would like to listen this time in the case that he's right. Now, there's also a chance that he's wrong. But at least for me, I don't care. I think it's an asymmetric bet, and I want to make the bet with spare cash and potentially cash in tens of millions of dollars. And if not, keep working on my businesses and keep focusing on myself. But Murad says this is a once in a decade opportunity, and he's made a lot of money in the last decade. Ready, Steady, Go tweets that the number of SPX 6900 whales holding over $1 million has increased by 55%. Holding over $100,000 has increased by 43%. Big money is bidding these teeny tiny coins, and look at the hold account, guys. The hold account continues to go up in both bullish and bearish parts of the cycle. Now, I wanted to see what made the SPX community the best community. I tweeted this out an hour and 15 minutes ago, and I'm going to refresh it here just to get up-to-date info. I've got 39 comments, 5 retweets, 48 hearts over here. And you can see that Mung, who I've talked about in videos before, has replied, as has all of the SPX 6900 community. Guys, they are an incredible community. Some of these posts are really well thought out. I mean, to think that just in an hour and 15 minutes in like Australian time, I mean, most of the US is probably asleep at this point in time, to think they've been able to get 40 well thought out, interesting replies onto my tweet, I mean, honestly, makes me want to buy, and I will be buying. That's my summary of all of this. I think this is an awesome time for me personally to be buying into the SPX 6900. I'm going to show you exactly why in 3 graphs after this. Rael Pell has also zoomed out a little bit. He says, we remain in the midst of the greatest macro trade of all time. All the wiggles and the timeline FUD are just noise. All you have to do to capture it is not be too far out on the risk curve, not using leverage, and the ability to have patience and zoom out. Don't mess this up. Now I want to show you the SPX 6900 graph, because remember, this is Murad's #1 hold. And I want to show you this really strong pullback that it's had from almost 3 cents up here. Wait, come on, pop up here for me at 2.8 cents, all the way back to less than a cent. Do you think that this could turn around and go higher? Well, if you said no, I gotcha, because this is not the actual current SPX 6900 graph. This is a pullback of more than, what is that, probably 75%, maybe 70% roughly, that happened in July 2024 when a lot of people thought it was over. And guess what happened, guys? From then, it absolutely went parabolic up to almost $1.88, which is like an 88x on your money, and it's still only sitting at a $683 million market cap. Has it's had, oh sorry, it did pass the dollar, I didn't zoom out far enough again, but again, you can see these massive pullbacks where people think it's over. Went from $1 almost down 50% to 50 cents before it did another tripling up to $1.50. This is very natural. Now, eventually, if it does go to 0, it's going to look very much the same, but at least historically, the SPX graph and the part of the market cycle that I think we are currently in leads me to believe that this is the best time to be greedy at 68 cents. And a little personal anecdote, I actually bought Dogecoin down here at about 5 cents. And I remember I bought it and being like, oh, this has to be the play. I know it's already run up a lot. I believe that's actually a $5 million market cap, a $5 billion market cap. Interesting. I thought I got in way earlier than that, but it was a $5 billion market cap that I got in. I'm like, this has to be the play. I remember this coin was massive on Reddit in the early days, and I'm like, people are going to get behind this. And I bought in quite early once it hit the $5 billion market cap. You can see here, this is 16th of Feb. By the time it skyrocketed, it was probably 2 months. And in my head, I'm like, what's happening? Like, I thought this was the play. This has to be the play. And I had to wait 60 days, which to me felt like 6 months back then. And before it absolutely skyrocketed and took off up to that $88 billion, $94 billion market cap, whatever it hit. But at least in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy in now. I'm going to buy in SPX now, and it's going to turn around and skyrocket. Guys, it could be 2 months. It could be 3 months. It could be 2 days. I don't know. But all I know is if Murad's thesis is right, this is an excellent opportunity to get in. Lastly, I'll leave you with something fun that I realized, because I know a lot of those replies that people were making to my post, people were mentioning this is the new age, like GME, GameStop. And I'm like, oh yeah, let me go have a look at the GameStop graph. Let me see if it did sort of have a dips and pullbacks. And it kind of did, but not crazy amounts, at least when it zoomed out to this point. But what I did realize is if you got in basically at the bottom before GME started turning around at $4, $4.50 US, and you could sell the top. Let's not do the first peak, because that's just crazy if you sold the peak there. But let's just say you sold this second peak right on that peak. That's $66. That is only about a 15, 16x return on your money. When we're talking Murad's thesis, we're talking 50, 100, 200x returns on our money. And this is one of the craziest things in financial history, at least over the last decade. And if you time the bottom to top, you're still only doing a 15, 16x on your money. So at least for me, I agree with Murad. I think this could be the play of the decade. I'm personally putting money that I can afford to lose there. That's the last thing that you have to make sure you're doing if you are buying into this thesis and deciding that you want to invest as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.